Thinking back, I used to watch a lot of television as a kid. Always loved to come home from school and watch Cartoon Network until I would go to bed, or on the weekends I would love watching SpongeBob all day. But thinking about some of these cartoons reminded me of a show I used to watch when I was much younger, Crashbox. The show would play fairly often on HBO, and I would end up seeing it when I would click through channels on my TV. Even from a young age, I thought the show was weird. The assembly line used to create the games for the show always looked cool, but the games themselves would either be fun and enjoyable, or weird with a gross-looking animation style, like the revolting slob. Even my favorite game on the show, Think Tank, where a submarine captain was stuck in a fish tank, and he would have to ask the viewer to figure out what three things had in common to stop the tank from emptying. This just always seemed bleak to me, since he would never be able to escape the tank that he was trapped in, and he would be forever stuck solving puzzles in order to not have it empty. But the thought about that kid show from my childhood made me wonder about other weird and disturbing kid shows out there, so let's look into them together. Content warning ahead. This video is going to be covering some dark topics such as the one listed on screen. If any of these bother you, check out my previous video, which is on a much lighter subject. Most of the entries in this video aren't going to be bad. The first one is pretty rough, so if you feel the need, you can just skip over that one and watch the rest of the video, as most of them are pretty tame. Thanks to Cyber Limbo for the iceberg I used to find some of these weird kid shows. Joy Junction. Airing during the 1980s, Joy Junction was a Christian-themed television show set in a fictional village called Joy Junction, featuring the town's residents, Mrs. Peterson, the professor, Ron, and his puppet Marty. The show itself having the children engage in challenging games while learning valuable lessons from the Bible, including solo performances from the singers, as well as a small segment of Ron and Marty. Today, the show is only partially found, with only a few clips being available to watch. You may be wondering, if you haven't seen many videos about this show already, why I would add the show to a video like this. On the surface, the show is fairly simple, with nothing disturbing or overly odd for a kid's show on a Christian channel. But if you were to investigate into some of the actors on the show, you would immediately understand what is so dark about it. Ron and Marty are played by ventriloquist Ronald Brown, who was really nothing too special during that time. In 1998, Ronald would be charged with a traffic violation, which isn't really anything too crazy until the police noticed a pair of boys' underwear in the passenger seat of his vehicle. He explained that it was just simply used for his puppets, but in 2013 we would learn that he probably wasn't telling the truth. Ronald would be hit with cheese pizza charges, as well as documents that implicated him that he and Michael Arnett would talk in a chat group about abusing, cooking, and eating young boys in highly graphic details, including a child that Ronald had met personally in church, which makes this show much darker. The fact that a person as vile and disgusting as him was freely having pizza parties with children in his home and often performing puppet shows for these young kids is sickening. Frady Cat. Originally releasing to ABC in 1975, Frady Cat is a show that originally was a segment on Filmation's Uncle Croc's Block, which was an animated spoof of live-action kids shows. 18 episodes of Frady Cat were initially commissioned and planned to be used in Uncle Croc's Block, but when Croc's Block got cancelled, only 12 had been made and 6 ended up being scrapped. Eventually, the episodes would be aired in short 6 to 7 minute story formats, the show revolving around an unlucky and miserable cat named Frady Cat, who was haunted by his previous 8 lives from different periods of time. His goal is to avoid saying any single-digit number that wasn't 0, because if he were to say a number, a spirit from the time period would appear and haunt him. Frady used to have 9 lives, but he'd used 8 of them, so now he's on his final life, and he wants to make it last the longest. In each episode, Frady gets into a dangerous situation by himself or something else. He always ends up saying a number on accident, causing the ghost cat corresponding to the number to try to help him, but if he said 9, A short-tempered storm cloud in the shape of the number 9 would appear and attempt to attack him. The show is pretty one-dimensional, with every character in the show out to get Frady, and every situation being fairly easily avoidable. But the world around him has very little life or soul to it. It's mostly dark and grim, and Frady lives a miserable life of being terrified for everything, shaking no matter where he is or what he's doing, even if he's just alone. Frady is also extremely skinny in the show, talking about how he's starving and has to dig through garbage or steal to get food. In the third episode, Over the Wall, towards the end, he's seen eating a half-eaten fish with a half-eaten watermelon, and saying that he landed on a 9-course meal. Frady is also homeless, and is often depicted sleeping in random places, talking about how he has to be very careful where he rests because he's on his last life. Frady's miserable life is made worse in every episode, which makes this show feel pretty dark for a kid's show. Jigsaw. No, this doesn't relate to the movie by the same name. This was just a show that aired on BBC from 1979 to 1984 that featured elements of puzzle solving and entertainment. The viewers would try to identify a 6-letter word, and each letter would be identified with a sketch of some variety featuring the host, Adrian Headley. At the end of the program, we would see the character that made this show very odd and weird to kids, Nosy Bonk. A well-dressed character with a freakish-looking disturbing face. His wide smile, excessively long nose, messy stringy white hair, and his wide-open eyes with no eyelids or eyebrows make him look quite deranged. Any close-up of his face is terrifying. I'm uncertain why they wanted to have him look like this as just a regular character for a kid's show. And at this point, Jigsaw itself is much more well known for Nosy Bonk, considering the rest of the show is lost media from what I've seen. Block 13. Airing in Kuwait TV in 2000, Block 13 was South Park, but not South Park at the same time. It was South Park that was made for families and children alike to watch together. It was created given the fact that South Park is banned in Kuwait due to it poking fun at Islam. The series would deal with many issues that concern the Kuwaiti population, similarly to the way that South Park would cover issues in the United States. The quality of the show isn't great, the voice acting being very high-pitched and annoying, and the characters looking a lot worse compared to South Park, but I had read that the creator was actually a fan of South Park and wanted to create something given the fact that the people wouldn't be able to enjoy South Park for themselves. So I think that's pretty sweet. The characters are basically copies of characters in South Park, but with different names and slight alters to the appearances to make them more fitting for Kuwait. Saloom, who is the character that is supposed to be the same as Kenny, both come from difficult situations that they hope to make the best of, and they make him die in a lot of the episodes the same way that they do that to Kenny in South Park. Overall, the show seems like something that would be mocked in actual South Park, similar to when The Amazing World of Gumball tackled the issue of their show being copied, but I think that Block 13 was created with much better intention compared to that of Miracle Star, which was just a blatant copy with no respect for the original. While not all of these shows are bad or have bad intentions, they are all fairly weird or disturbing in some way in my opinion. Hopefully you all were able to enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to like the video, and I'll either do a part 2 or I could do the entirety of the iceberg that I'd used to get the entries I used for this video. Thank you for those who voted in the poll. It really helps me decide between a few ideas, and it lets me know what you guys would rather see compared to maybe things you aren't as interested in. You can comment down below for any future video ideas, and I might use some of those. With that all being said, thank you again for making it this far. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.